Hi, everybody. Welcome to the World View. My name is Chris Greco. I'm going to be your host for the next 30 minutes, talking about things that are happening in the world. Uh, Try to not focus so much on the United States, but to talk about different aspects in different areas of the world. So, what I wanted to do, first of all, was talk about Iran. We're going to talk about Iran, and then we're going to talk about Canada. We're going to talk about specifically about Quebec, however you want to pronounce it. Used to be Quebec, now it's Quebec. I don't understand. So, anyways, Quebec, and I want to focus on some countries that are on the periphery of situations here and how that all melds into the whole situation and worldview. So today is going to be about worldview. I mean, I call the program the worldview, but let's talk about worldview, like world perspective. How does that all work? So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about Iran. So I want to point out where Iran is because I think this is important. And whenever we talk about Iran, I think we forget a lot of things. First of all, Iran is located here, and this is the Caspian Sea. Now, as you can see, the Caspian Sea is totally landlocked, and it is shared by a number of countries here. And Turkmenistan is here, Russia. You have Azerbaijan here. There's a lot of different areas where they're shared from, and I think this is pretty important. Kazakhstan. So a lot of them have access to the Caspian Sea. So what I heard a news area was talking about was that evidently what's happening is that the Iranians are providing um, let's go back to the basic beginning here. So Iran says nuclear weapons are against their religion. That even if they had the ability to develop it, which they kind of laughed at in different news areas, and they basically say that they can develop it if they want, but they wouldn't develop it because it's against their religion. It's not a peaceful. It's a weapon of mass destruction. So that would be definitely against the peaceful aspect of what Iran says their religion is all about. Even though allegations are made, a lot of allegations are made about their supporting terrorism. So I don't know how that goes, hand in hand or not hand in hand, whatever else is going on there. So they are they are saying no, we're never going to use nuclear weapons, even if we could develop them. Now, Iran is providing drones to Russia, according to some intelligence reports in different open source areas. And one of the way they're doing that is this is Russia here. So this is all Russia right in here. This is Ukraine in here. A lot of different areas in Ukraine that are happening. There's Bakhmut, which is the center of all kind of things here. So basically, what's happening is that they are saying the intelligence open source is saying is that they're leaving from a port here and they're going up through the Caspian Sea and then dropping the drones off in the Russian area right here. So I think that's very interesting how that's working. In other words, it's not really a hop, skip, and jump, folks. I mean, this is if you really want to see, this is what are we talking about here? If we were to just do it, just straight line aspects. Um, so we're talking just about, let's do it in miles. So we'll do it in miles just so we all know what's going on. About 415 miles just to that point. And then from that point here is another 163 miles. So, we're talking about 600 miles, and that's straight line aspects, 600 miles to that area. So it's pretty long. It's a long voyage, sea voyage, but they're unfettered. They're not going to be attacked by Turkmenistan. They're not going to be attacked by Kazakhstan. They're not going to be attacked by Russia, by Azerbaijan. They're not going to be attacked by anybody. So they have a basically free sailing here between the port and then wherever they're going to drop it off in Russia, in this area. I think it was where they stated. So it's and this is where when we talk about this, we say, hey, what's going on? Well, we know that Iran gets support from Russia, um, and Iran supports Russia. I mean, they're both kind of under sanctions, so they are kind of supporting each other. The enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, whatever. And we also know that Iran is courting China and Saudi Arabia. So they went to China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, and they are now becoming closer together. We never wanted Saudi Arabia and Iran to become closer together, but they are, and that's where this whole situation comes into play. In the way that I understand Iran is, unfortunately, 40 some years ago when I was in intelligence, and I was stationed in Europe, Southern Europe, watching this situation in Iran develop, and it was not developing well. Ended up with a revolution and the taking of the embassy, and things started to really turn for the worst when it came to U.S. relationships with Iran, and that really had a problem. We really had a problem with that. And then, of course, Iraq had a problem. They started to attack. They started to attack Iran, and then there was a war there that lasted for several years. So all kind of situations happened in this area, right between Iraq and Iran. Interesting enough, Iran is Persia, right? So even though it's included as part of the Middle East, really Iraq is Middle East area. Iran is kind of separate from that area. It's almost in that Central Asian area. It encompasses a lot of inland areas you can see here, and it borders a lot of different areas, including Afghanistan. So Afghanistan and Pakistan both border Iran. So I think that's important to bring out. Here we were fighting in Afghanistan with our nearest enemy being Iran right here, right along that border. So that's and Turkmenistan here. So there's a lot of situations that are happening within the Iran area, and that's important to understand how that relationship is. But the worldview, meaning Iran's view of themselves, according to reports, according to press reports, stating that we have, hey, we don't want any problems here. We don't want to. We can develop nuclear weapons if we want, but we're not going to develop nuclear weapons because that's against our religion. And you can believe what you want to believe about that whole situation. I'm sure that the United States, in their worldview, said some things in the past that we sit back and we say, "Geez, is that really how we feel?" Probably not, but things have to be said in order to put everybody at ease so that you don't have this big, gigantic magnifying glass on Iran during this whole situation. So that's something that I just wanted to point out. And this is going to be a relatively quick worldview, but I wanted to point out those areas that I think is very, very important. Okay, so the next area we're going to talk about is all the way across the world here. And I think this is important too. Oh, by the way, just on a side note, there is going to be this massive, absolutely massive NATO air power display centered around Germany, and they are going to have U.S. and Canada and NATO. I mean, all kind of NATO, including Finland. Finland is also going to be part of that. And geez, I almost hate to bring this up, but I want to bring up the fact that Finland has just built the wall, right? And I think that's interesting to just point out. I wanted to make sure and understand and make you understand that Finland has built this wall. Now we take a look at Finland up in this area, and they have one of the largest, if not the largest, border with Russia, right? I mean, if we just take a look at this from miles aspect, and we just do a straight line thing, we're talking about 600 miles right there, and then let's see, we'll go all the way down. So about 650 miles worth of border that's here, straight line again. So they built a wall. They're building a wall going across this border area here, all the way through to prevent, mitigate, whatever you want to call it, the any illegal immigration between Russia and Finland. As a matter of fact, Finland at one point in time took some visas away from Russians that were visiting Finland for summer vacation, winter vacation, wherever they're at. They're taking them away. But Finland is also going to be part of this exercise in Norway, which in Germany area, which is really pretty cool. So that's going to be a big show of force. They said that they are not going to go anywhere near Russia. They're not going to go anywhere near Ukraine, but they just want Russia to make sure that they understand that, you know, they're going to have a big show of air force in this area. They used to do this, folks. They used to do this a lot. I mean, we had a, I don't know if they still have it, but we used to have an exercise, a big exercise, and I can't remember if it was once or twice a year. It was called Reforger. And Reforger was, I mean, that was the name of it. And Reforger was considered to be, it was called Return of Forces to Germany. That was the name of the exercise, and Reforger was it. And Reforger used to take place, you know, and we used to have exercises, tanks and aircraft and all kind of different things in these areas, specifically in Germany and surrounding areas, when Germany was a split country, and they, you know, they had East Germany and West Germany. It's a lot of show of force to show the East Germans, and you know, this was before the split up of Warsaw Pact and everything else, the Warsaw Pact, and to show them that, hey, look, you know, we can get forces in there quickly, and we can do some things that will help us to defend against any incursion by Poland, or by Warsaw Pact, or by Russia. Interesting about it is Finland, the reason they built this wall is because they're really scared because the situation in Ukraine, about what happened there. So that's what happened there. And Finland did build the wall. So they're building the wall in that area. And I keep bringing it up because, you know, people I know get upset about that phrase, but literally they are building a wall. And this fenced wall, they talk about barbed wire, but actually it's concertina wire, which is much more destructive than barbed wire ever was. Razor sharp, jagged edges. It's really, it's tough on you. So that's what's happening there, and that's pretty much all I want to talk about from the standpoint of Europe. Now let's roll over to the to the other area, North America, and what I'd like to do is clear that out. What I'd like to do is take and bring it back north. There we go. Hoop. And we're going to talk about Canada. So this is Canada and here, and this is Quebec. The Quebec area, and this is really interesting, is Quebec is basically a French speaking. I mean, they speak English too, but all their signs are in French and English, and they do a lot of French stuff. Well, they're having problems with wildfires in Quebec. They're also having problems with wildfires in Alberta and those areas. I mean, because of the massive areas. I think they were saying 4,000 hectares, which is, I don't even know what that is offhand. I think I'm going to see if I can convert it for you real quick here. So convert hectares to, so they're saying 4,000 hectares. Wow. 4,000 hectares. So one hectare, or whatever they call it, is 107,000 square feet. So 107,000 square feet. If you take, I mean, 107,000 square feet. Wow. So 107,000 square feet per hectare, right? So they're saying it's 4,000 hectares. So I'm going to let you do the math on that. So it's, I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot of square feet. And so they're having some issues with this area. Now, the interesting thing about it is that they're not having it just in Quebec. They're having it in other areas too, you know, Alberta, Saskatchewan. They're having Manitoba, Ontario. They had it to the point in Ontario where it was coming down, the wildfires are coming down into this area here. So the French, and this is about the French now. The French are providing support to Canada. Not so fast though. They're not providing support to all of Canada, at least from what I can read in the reports. Now, if they are, bad on me. You know, I didn't do all the research I could do. But you know, the French. You know, I always say this. And people come at me. They go, "Oh, yeah, Chris, you just don't like the French, whatever." French support French. That's what French do. French support French. So they're going to go to French Quebec because that's what they're doing. And they're going to be in French Quebec. So the wildfires are in Quebec. So I applaud them on their support to Quebec. That's fantastic. But there's wildfires in another part of Canada. So are you, as a French, are they solely providing it to Quebec? Are they just, how is it working? And I think that's very interesting how, they state there's a lot of differences in terrain and topography and all that stuff, which, yeah, I guess it would be. But I don't know why. I always had this funny feeling that, and then I ask, why are the French in French Quebec? Really, do I even have to ask that question, right? So I have that situation where I take a look at this and I say, this is very interesting. Are the French, the Quebec, um, the French in Quebec have always been trying to separate from Canada and form their own country. And the last referendum they had, they were defeated. I'm wondering now if they go at that referendum, if they wouldn't be able to separate from Canada. You can see the land area here. Land area here is huge, right? Now, if they do that, there's Newfoundland and Labrador here, and there's Ontario here. They would literally be separating that area here from this area here. New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, all these areas would now be separate because they'd be separated from that because you'd have the country of Quebec right in there. And if Quebec was smart and they've separated, they would charge any type of tariff coming from Ontario all the way through Quebec into Newfoundland, Labrador, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, all these areas start charging tariffs, and now all of a sudden, they would be able to gain some areas. Also, you got to remember there's New York right here, and Montreal is right here, so it's very, very close to the United States, closer, I would state, than in some cases than Toronto is, because here's Toronto here, which is fine. But you got to come across. You got to come across and over to Rochester and all that. And here's Montreal right here. It goes right through. There's Vermont. There's New Hampshire. All these areas are well within driving distance of Montreal. So that's just something I just stating fact. The French are in Quebec. Are they also in Alberta? I don't know. I looked, I couldn't see anything. Doesn't mean anything from that standpoint. Now, one more thing I wanted to bring up, and I think this is important, is that the Canadians, right? The Canadians, I shouldn't say Canadians, Canadian expert, right? Feels better forest management would be better for preventing, mitigating wildfires. The climate change, in fact, they state it. They state, it's basically what's happening is that it has to do with why they're putting climate change at first. But what's happening is because of those areas, because climate change is the big deal, they put forest management as number two. And forest management should go hand in hand, if not take over those areas the climate change is talking about. Across the country in Canada, according to one report, CBC report, 2.7 million hectares of forest went up in flames last month. 2.7 million hectares. So that times 107,000 square feet per hectare. So that's a lot of square footage, folks. I'm not going to do the math. So that is where, that's where you have these situations. Now, it's interesting to state that when you go, it says there's been good Jen Beverly, right, former firefighter, and now a University of Alberta assistant professor, says, documented evidence of increasing trends of longer fire seasons and larger fires, as well as increased frequency of extended dry spells. So basically what's happening is that you can't rely anymore on the data. So we'll talk about a little bit of that on the data show. But in essence, what's happening is that in one area in Global News, they talk about the fires have put climate change at the fore of public discussion, while forest management has taken a back seat. So Verena Gries, a professor in forest management at the University of British Columbia, said if we did more to manage our forests, we could help reduce the risk of fire, and says specifically, quote, forests in British Columbia are not really managed. Now, who said that last? Who said that last? I'll tell you who said that last, and it's going to cause, I know it's going to cause a ruckus on the show, but he said it was Donald Trump. Said that about the California wildfires. He said they needed better forest management. He was vilified because of that. And the bottom line is and what did President Biden say before he was president? Climate change. Now they're saying, look, we need, yes, there's a climate change factor in here, but you have to make sure to understand that forest management is part of that. So this is, I mean, this is something we talk about a worldview. This is what we're talking about here. And in the meantime, think back in the rest of it. So that's basically what is going on with the situation here, both in Iran, along with Finland, along with some other areas. So just remember, I think, whenever you take the show, is to sit back and take a look at the different ideas that are coming out from across the world, and then talk about how these things can be better, can be a perspective that might help you understand the entire world, right? Country by country, and how that country intersects with other countries. And I think that's the important part of the worldview. So on that note, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate very much your viewing the worldview, and to sit there and tell you, look, you're going to agree with everything I say. That's absolutely not true, and I get that. If you have any problems, or you have something that you really want to get off your chest, or a question you want to ask, please, I'm available. You can certainly get a hold of me through my email. This is the email. Please, because I have both the data show and this show, I just make one, statisticsleuth.com, but both the worldview and the data show, you can get to me through this area. So that's what we're talking about, and we'll talk a little bit more about these wildfires and whatever else on the data show. So in the meantime, please have a great day, have a great week. By the way, tomorrow, very important. I'm glad I remembered. Tomorrow, very important, Flag Day. I think this is important. On June 14th, we have Flag Day. And this is something that is really kind of put on the back burner. We have, Memorial Day, and then a little bit about D-Day, and then there's nothing about Flag Day. Tomorrow is Flag Day. Put out your U.S. flag. It's it's of course it's optional. Of course it's optional. You'll have to put it out, but if you have one and you like to display it, tomorrow's the day to display it. The United States flag represents a lot of things, and I think it's important to understand that to wave the flag is something that is really, really neat in the United States, and it's done a lot in the United States. I see a lot of flags in the neighborhood. I see a lot of flags. My grandson points out the U.S. flag, and he's 3. So there's a lot of things that people understand about the flag, and I think it's very important to understand that and to wave it with pride. It really is a prideful moment for the United States as a country to display its flag. So happy Flag Day tomorrow on June 14th. And thank you very much for watching Worldview. You know how to get a hold of me if you need to from an email perspective. And have a great, great, great rest of the week. Take care. Bye.